I convene the March 20th, 2024 regular board meeting to order at 7 p.m. Jackie, please call the roll.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Emily Swistak.
Here.
Karen Larson, absent. Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Vanessa Berry.
Here.
Debbie Bryan.
Here.
Josh Martin.
Here.
Thank you. No, I did not.
Did we get this, Jackie?
Did you press this?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then agenda item 2, opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Any comment tonight?
I do.
We've just had the hottest year on record for the world. And I think we can all agree that climate change is real and it's caused by human activity. Greenhouse gases from transportation account for 29% of US total gas emissions. In our area, it could be a higher percentage because we're a car-based community. We're auto-based transportation. Nitrous oxide often is listed as fair to poor on AccuWeather's air quality report for our area. It is often up to in the 50s, which is poor quality. Air pollution generally affects the elderly and very young children and is thought to potentially cause asthma in children by impacting their developing lungs and immune system. And that's from JAMA, the BM Journal, the Lancet, the National Institute of Health. Both prenatal and postnatal exposure to traffic-related air pollution has been shown to negatively affect lung development. So what to do? Well, since transportation is the main cause of poor air quality, and nitrous oxide PM2 and PM10 are often high in our area, reducing gas engine use and moving toward other sources to power our transportation is imperative. Again, our area is auto-dependent. Most people here drive. A move to electric vehicles would be a no-brainer. But despite rebates and reports, that's not done enough to make people move. The main stopping block is range and lack of charging stations. Laws are being considered right now, everything from requiring garages in newly built homes to be pre-wired for chargers, to requiring public buildings and some businesses to make outlets in their parking lots available on existing light poles. Last year, 1.2 million electric vehicles were sold in the United States. Laws take time though, and change takes time. And we don't have time to quibble or debate. So I'm challenging the library board to research options to install electric car chargers, to use a portion of the strategic fund on making it happen, and to be part of the solution instead of just a bystander to the problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Agenda item 3 acknowledges that President Bartelli and Trustee Martin reviewed the February billings in March, and that Secretary Sullivan and Trustee Berry will review the March billings in April. Agenda item 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Emily Swistak.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 5 is the LLD Decennial Committee. 5A is roll call. Jackie, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Emily Swistak.
Here.
Karen Larson, absent. Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Vanessa Berry.
Here.
Debbie Bryan.
Here.
Josh Martin.
Here.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Will Savage,
Here.
Lorna Turner.
Here.
John McCabe.
Here.
Thank you. 5B is to approve the decennial committee report. Director Weinstein, would you walk us through the draft?
Sure. Okay, so committee members do have a copy of the draft document and a clean copy for easier reading. The draft is also available on the online packet, within the online packet. So I will start with that, mentioning that this is our fourth and most likely final meeting of the decennial committee. I've incorporated the suggestions from the previous meetings into the draft and reformatted the document to include now an introduction. I then outlined the actual report information in sections 1 through 12. So I'm just gonna go over the changes tonight. Sections 1 through 5 essentially remain the same, except for, again, creating the introduction and then listing the fourth meeting, which would be tonight's meeting. Under section 6, I added the word pools, as you can see in red, as the library does participate in insurance and internet access pools, which affords us the best rates. And then I added that, I added library partners, that we partners with DuPage County on their initiatives in the building, countywide initiatives, and that's all under number 6. Under number 7, I added a few more organizations that the library partners with, such as Giant Steps Autism Organization and Versity Blood Center and others. We missed a couple of those organizations in the previous meetings. And then under section 8, I listed 2 other training efforts, such as the sexual harassment training, the prevention training for both staff and trustees, and that the library's FOIA officers also receive annual training. And then under section 9, most of the statements remain the same. Some statements were clarified, and you can see that in red. And then under section 10, since Personnel and Policy Committee has been very busy lately, I added the policies that are on our policy list tonight for approval. And then the last 2 sections are new. Under additional ideas, I did add the information about the automatic renewals. We discussed that last time in commission, and that shows that it improves staff productivity. And then I added a new mention under the second bullet point about optimizing the use of the vacant land that the library owns, creating an improved programming space that would allow for more efficient parking during the large scale programs. And then also mentioned that we would seek grants if we were to go for something like this. There was nothing definitive that this is the direction we're going, but this is just an option for us for the future. And then under the summary, I just identified the financial and operational processes that have increased efficiencies, transparencies, accountability, and also accessibility in the building. It also mentions that we've had levy decreases over the past few years, our relationships with intergovernmental groups, and then just finally assures the public that we will always be looking to increase efficiency in the library as long as we are maintaining quality resources, programs, and services for our patrons. And that's kind of my summary. And if there were any changes to the document, we can talk about that tonight.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve the LLD decennial committee report?
I move to approve LLD Decennial Committee Report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? Any questions, comments? Great job.
Yeah.
I
That'll
appreciate
work.
the additions in the last 2 sections under 11. The especially the discussion on the use of vacant land for programming space. I think that's valuable. Reflects the fact that we're not simply sitting on those assets and letting them languish. So I appreciated that addition to the report.
Great. Yeah. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Emily Swistack,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Vanessa Berry,
Aye.
Debbie Bryan,
Aye.
Josh Martin,
Aye.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Aye.
Will Savage.
Aye.
Lorna Turner.
Aye.
John McCabe.
Aye.
5C is public comment. Is there anyone here to provide public comment on the decennial report or committee activity? Seeing none, 5D is to adjourn. May I have a motion in a second?
We have to adjourn this meeting.
It's not the final meeting.
For this
I thought
meeting.
that, I understand that, I thought, well,
I move to adjourn the decennial meeting.
second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to thank resident members Lorna Turner and John McCabe for participating. I also thank the board and staff for their input on finalizing this thoughtful efficiency report. I do hereby disband the LLD Decennial Committee today, March 20th, 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
I've been thrown out of a lot of places. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Lorna.
Thank
If that's what we can do for you, let us know.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you.
Continuing the regular meeting brings us to item number 6, trustee training. Director Weinstein, would you introduce our guests for this evening?
I am happy to do that. I'm so pleased to introduce Joe Philippek, the Associate Executive Director of Rails. Come on up, Joe. So before Joe became the Deputy Director of Rails, I've had the pleasure of attending many programs that he's facilitated through Rails. And Joe is here today to provide an overview for trustees and to answer any questions you might have on your responsibilities. And he also has a very unique perspective in that he is not only an administrative executive, but he's also a trustee in Fulton County. Okay, I'm gonna leave it to you. Do you wanna get-
As we set up, I do just want to share a
Laying your
little
way.
story. I've been to Lisle Public Library before, but as I was telling Tatiana, our board meetings at Aurora start at 6, and I had in my mind this meeting would start at 6, so I got here very early, which afforded me the opportunity to see your wonderful library, and it is wonderful. But one of the things, I grew up in Wisconsin, and my mother was an avid library user, and one of the earliest memories I have is going with her to pick up artwork, art prints that we would hang in our home every week, and I would help her with that. But I rarely see those in libraries, so when I was out there and saw the prints, I had many great memories. So thank you for that.
Nice.
All right. Okay, advocates and allies. So as Tatiana said, Associate Executive Director and I'm Board President at Aurora Public Library District, so I wear a couple different library hats. I haven't done this talk in a while. Last time I did it, they wanted me to do an hour, so thank you for only asking for 20 to 30 minutes. You don't want your board meeting to go that long anyway. But I do like to highlight the advocate and ally piece because I think as trustees that is kind of two of the most important roles that we play, advocating for the library and our communities, our legislators, and really being allies and working in support of the library. Usually thank yous at the end, but I like to thank you in the beginning for not only being here, but just being trustees for your role. I think that in my 10 years at Rails, and Lisle is one of our 400 plus, you're one of our 400 plus public library members. We hear from a lot of libraries, and I find that libraries that do not have active engaged boards, it's difficult for them to thrive. And libraries that do have active and very engaged boards often are doing great things. And it takes, this is a volunteer gig, right? I assume you're not being paid. It's important that we have these boards across all of Illinois and all of our libraries, big and small. So thank you for the part you play in this. So a lot of what I'm doing tonight, I think, is talking about the trustee role. Sometimes I think that's the hardest part for us is figuring out what our role is, especially as we come into the board new. There's a lot of different places we can look to establish and figure out what our role is supposed to be, and maybe more, but just as importantly, not supposed to be as a trustee. Different places you can look, but I often, and I think some consistency in these kind of 5 things that as library trustees, our role is to set policies, and I saw that you have a whole bunch of policies you're going to be reviewing tonight, so I think you understand that role. Obviously, the hiring and evaluating the library director, planning for the future of the library, and that's kind of our role in strategic planning, monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of our services. That's why you get that board packet each month that I'm sure has program statistics, circulation statistics. So how is the board performing in that regard? And then I think that Bear with me, folks. There it is. And as I said, advocating for the library, the sort of role that we play. And that doesn't necessarily mean going out and having coffee with our legislators each day. It's really being the face of the library in the community, your neighbors, making sure they're aware of the great work and the great things that your library provides. And I don't know how many times I've had the conversation with people in my neighborhood, people I know in Aurora, and I hear the phrase, I didn't know the library did that. I didn't know the library has that. And that's a role that you can play really as a trustee, is being aware of the services and the great things that you do here in Lisle. But we can also look to, if we want to actually dive into the Illinois library, the Illinois compiled statutes, and actually look at, okay, well, what guidance does it give us in the Public Library District Act about what the role of the library trustee is? And this first one, make and adopt regulations, resolutions for their own guidance and for the government of the library. Those are policies, and not only policies, but the bylaws for the board itself. And I can't tell you how many times I get questions that trustees or library directors will reach out to me or us at Rails to ask about whether they can do something. And a lot of times the answer is, what do your bylaws have to say? Or certainly what do your policies have to say? So it just speaks to the importance of regularly reviewing not only policies, but the bylaws for the board itself, because that is obviously an important guiding document for you all. Of course, the money, our fiduciary responsibility. We have that sort of legal responsibility for overseeing the library finances. And to that point, accountability and awareness of how the library is funded, where the revenue comes from, the structure, availability of grants, some of those things I've heard already. That is one of our most critical roles, and it really is about that sort of budgetary oversight. That is one of our most important and often challenging roles, because most board members, I feel, come into this position maybe with not a lot of kind of financial background or knowledge. And even those that come in with that, as you know, the structure of library district and tax levies and this whole cycle it can be pretty overwhelming. My library in Aurora, we were a city library up until 2020, and then we converted to a library district. So there was a big learning curve for us when we were used to working with the city on our budget and our levy, and then all of a sudden we were a district and doing it just as you all do. So there's a big learning curve, and we have to rely on director, finance manager, and even some sort of outside counsel to help us in kind of understanding those processes. So it's a big, important responsibility. Control the construction of any library building, care, custody of the grounds, rooms, buildings constructed, et cetera. It's all about the space, right? And I think that I almost feel like we, now in 2024, talk so much about all we do in terms of technology, ebooks, the fact that our residents don't have to come into the library to use it, right? They can go access resources from the website, and all of that is great. But I don't think we want to forget just how important this facility is and this whole third place concept. You got work, you got home. What is that other place that's important to you to go? So our investment into the facility is important, and understanding what that means. And I'll just, this has been on my mind a lot at Aurora. We're in the midst of beginning a couple big renovations to our 2 branch locations. And it's unique in Aurora because our branches, one of which is connected to a park district, one is connected to a middle school. So it's very unique in that way, but both of them really need some big renovations. So having this sort of capital needs assessment, the idea that a good assessment of your facility allows you to really plan and save for those upcoming both short and long-term capital expenses, so that you're not all of a sudden scrambling when you need to replace a roof that's leaking, that you're being proactive in that way. I would guess that you have a special reserves fund that, that you contribute to. I mean, that is what it is there for. Example, 2 weeks ago, as I said, we're renovating our Yola Road branch, needs a new HVAC unit. We learned that these steel supports on the roof were not going to be adequate for the new HVAC, and it's going to be a big expenditure to replace these steel supports for the new HVAC unit. We had planned for this, and we had planned sort of to allow that certain buffer for unanticipated, and there is always the anticipated. So that capital needs assessment is just a really important tool, both for planning and just, I think there's a certain amount of kind of PR value to it as well. Our residents may ask the question, why do you have this dollar amount in your reserves? You've taxed, you've put in reserves, what is it doing there? When you have a plan and can sort of show like, these are the things over the next 10, 15, 20 years, and we don't want to have to all of a sudden take this out of our operating budget. Like, this is what our capital reserves fund is for, just budget for that. And again, we worked with our architect, and even at Rails, we're doing this with an outside consultant for our facility to really put us in place, look at the next 20 years, and where are going to be those big expenditures so that we're ready for it, and that it's not a surprise. So yes, capital needs assessment is something we've been thinking about a lot. And then to go back to those roles again, appoint, fix the compensation of a qualified librarian, i.e. director, that is going to administer the district's daily operations, one of our important roles as a board. And I will talk a little bit more about the kind of evaluation piece, because I think that that's often sometimes neglected and is often, I feel like, the hardest thing for the board, because it's like the one thing that the director can't really do for us or help us with. We're evaluating the director, so the board really has to obviously take the lead on that process. So as we talk about board roles, and particularly coming onto a board, I think often there's this confusion around what is the role of the board, what is the role of the director or the staff at the library. And I will leave, this is hard to read, admittedly, I had to kind of scan, and some of you may have seen this. This has been used and it appears in a lot of things, but it just gives a general, very broad, okay, what are the roles of the director when it comes to policy? What are the roles of the library board when it comes to policy? Now, there is a column for Friends Group that's a separate training, and that brings its own challenges. But I do have copies of this if you're interested in it. Very few things can be distilled into a nice, handy chart like this. But I do think that it gives some very broad guidance. And to me, when I just look at the words in those two columns under director, I see words like administer, present, implement, coordinate. And for library board, I see words like adopt, approve, advocate, promote. And to me, it really speaks to the difference of the staff's role in the administration and operation of the library, with the board's role being one of oversight and, again, that advocacy piece. Now, Tatiana kind of has to do both things. She both gets to think about the short-term, day-to-day stuff and also the long-term, but it really is important for the board to be thinking about that long-range future planning, strategic planning. If I would highlight a few things here, again, the general administrative, this is the day-to-day, all those things that are central to the library's operation that falls within the director. And then, of course, the board, the ongoing appraisal and relationship with the director that is really so key. I've talked about policies. Policies is important for the legal protection of the library. It dictates the sort of protocol and the procedures that the staff are going to use in the library, but they have to have that policy backing it. And I think that when we talk about policies, a sort of legally defensible policy is going to not only comply with our local and state laws, it's going to be clearly written, it's going to be reasonable, and it's going to be applied without discrimination across all of our users. And having a sort of rotating, and it sounds like maybe you do, where you're looking at policies on something of a schedule is a really good way to do it. And I think that often it sounds like you have a policy personnel committee as well. I often find that's the busiest committee because there's always something new to look at. And so I'm always at my board meetings thanking the policy committee because they're meeting a lot more than anyone else. But again, those policies are so important, especially when there's any kind of issue situation, to be able to refer back to the policy. The planning piece, that really speaks to the, again, strategic plan, and while the director and staff are going to really be the ones coordinating and implementing the strategic plan, for the board as community members that understand the values within this community, the things that the library is going to help your community with whatever its need to be able to articulate that during the strategic planning process. That's one of the most important roles that you have. And as I said, the fiscal responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility in that sort of oversight and making sure that we have those adequate funds in place to carry out the library's strategic plan. Okay, pause for drink. Collective authority. So this is always a term I like to bring up with boards, and really it doesn't matter what board you're part of. I think this concept of collective authority is about as key as it comes when it's a group of 5, 7, or 9 that have this sort of authority as you do as the library board. No individual board member has any authority over the organization, right? The power is in your vote, and only when we as a board are acting as a group can we direct the organization. So to function effectively, the board really has to speak with one vote. Now, that doesn't mean that there is not room for disagreement. Of course there is, and otherwise we could have a board of just one person that would make all the decisions, but we would have 7 or 9 because we want different views and we want debate, discussion. But the point is, when there's a vote, when there's a decision made, we have to do our best to, again, speak with that one voice once a decision is made. Without that, it really erodes, I think, trust that we have from our community to be a fully functioning board. Collective authority, I think, is just a concept that we have to embrace as a library. I was really, values. I don't know that boards often, and even libraries, always have the conversations around values that we should, but I was in the parking lot looking at Lisle's website, and I was pleasantly surprised to see a statement of values, and there was a bullet point 6, 7, 8 values that spoke to the library. And I think that, you go community to community. Some library values, the preservation of history, some innovation, technology, some equity, diversity, inclusion. Those are values. And again, as board members, as individuals that live in the community, to be able to make sure that the board focus, the strategic plan, all kind of reflects those community values, which again can vary quite a bit, but to be able to do our best to reflect those in all that we do in our planning for the library. Director evaluation, what I will say about this is, number one, you should do that. I know I hear from a lot of directors that have not had evaluations 5, 6, 7 years, or never, honestly. But you just have to think about, you have one staff member that reports to you, the board, right? It's a director. It just says we would, in any position, if you're a manager and you have staff, you have to give them feedback and evaluation. And this is one of the important roles that a board plays. We're working on this at my library in Aurora right now. I would just say, as we think about what are the kinds of things that we should be considering when we do an evaluation of the director, their relationships to staff, to management, obviously to us as board members, what the strategic plan that we have, what has been accomplished there, the progress on the strategic plan, again, their ability to balance the finances of the library and the overall quality of library services, to name just a few. One thing that I also hear that boards will do is each board member will fill out some kind of evaluation, which is fine. But then I know of boards that will then just take those and just hand them to the director. So the problem with that is if you're a director, you're reading 7 evaluations, and some of them may say exactly the opposite things. You want Tatiana to be out in the community more. You say she needs to be more visible in the library. So as a director, which one am I supposed to do, right? And this goes back again to collective authority, and that The one phrase that I hate hearing any director say is that I have 7 or I have 9 bosses. One, it's the board, and that gets to that, again, collective authority. So I just encourage you to be thinking about that as you think about the director evaluation process. Open Meetings Act, these are just helpful reminders. So majority of the quorum, these are just kind of the, when I hear about or when I learn of things in a library that are in some way a violation of the Open Meetings Act, I feel like they fall in these 4 categories. So majority of the quorum, there's 7 of you, the quorum would be 4, a majority of that quorum would be 3. So basically, 3 of you having a conversation about library business would trigger Open Meetings Act. And I'll just give you an example of how 6-7 months ago, Aurora board meeting had wrapped up and we were walking out. And I was walking with 2 other trustees and somebody said something about a conversation we were having in the board meeting. 1 or 2 of us responded and that was it. And then the next meeting, a community member came up to me and had overheard that conversation. And luckily, I had a good relationship with this community member, so just as a kind of FYI, but just that little conversation there, 3 of us talking about library business technically, because it was a conversation around something we talked about. That's all it can take. So it's just something to be super. So ever since that meeting, I wait for everybody to leave and then I walk out last just to avoid that happening. Closed session topics. So I see this in boards as well where, and believe me, I've been in meetings where I wish I could just sit with the board members and only the board members and have a conversation without, and at times at Aurora with some of the controversy we've had over the years in my term, we've had 50, 100 people there. It could be difficult having those conversations, but the Open Meetings Act does not allow you to go into closed session to just have privacy, right? It's very strict about here are the 18 or whatever topics that you are allowed to go into closed session. And beyond that, once you're in closed session, it's very easy to get off topic and then have a violation of the Open Meetings Act because you've veered off onto another topic that is not allowed by Open Meetings Act. And that it's so hard and you have to be very vigilant about that. But we had an Open Meetings Act violation at Aurora back in, you were thinking, why is this guy training us if he's at an Open Meetings Act? But I was new, I was a rookie, but it's just to say how easy it is to be talking about a topic, and because everything is sort of related, you have to be very careful. We had a review of our closed session recording, and it was found there were a couple of things in there so that is something to be very aware of. Electronic communications is just the idea that we can't just say, well, if I use my personal email, or if we just have a conversation on Slack, it's not part of the library, so it's not foiable. I mean, that's not the essence of Open Meetings Act. And the transparency is just by simply moving to another platform for communications, then you can do and say whatever you want. You have to be vigilant across all platforms when it comes to not discussing the library business in the context of Open Meetings Act. Public comment, we have it, we know we have to have it as part of our meetings, but I think you also just want to be careful about any restrictions. I've seen libraries require that people sign in not only with their name, but their address. Public Access Counselor said that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So you can have some restrictions, time limits, things like that, but to not make it overly restrictive. Public comment is there as an opportunity for people at your meetings to be heard. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with, top 10 list. Did anybody go to the trustee banquet last year in Oak Park? Okay, good, because I did this there and I didn't want to. So the origins of this actually, I was driving to Oak Park, I was asked to speak at this trustee banquet about censorship. That was kind of the topic. And but I was also wanting to speak about the trustee experience, and I got caught in traffic, so I decided on my phone to come up with a top 10 list of things that I wish trustees would know, understand, do, etc. So this is not an official list. This is Joe in his car on his phone, just stopped. I was safe. But Okay, this one seems very simple, but I will tell you as one who worked in libraries for a number of years, how much it matters to staff when they see trustees who don't have library cards at all. It doesn't mean you have to be a power user. In fact, I don't think I'd want to board all of library power users. That seems intense, but to simply have a library card. So if anybody here doesn't, I encourage you, you can do it very quiet on a Saturday, just come in, get it done, but it's something staff is aware of, and I hear it again and again. And sometimes that's even kind of a question that boards will ask when they're filling a vacancy. It's often the first question. So be a library card holder. I already covered this. It is the law. I'm not just suggesting it for transfer. This is the law of the land, and we have to abide by it. Director is the only staff member who reports to the board, full stop. I've been in situations at previous libraries where trustee would just walk into my office. I was a department head, give me input, give me advice, feedback, and it was very uncomfortable. And again, you have to be really sort of intentional about your communication and making sure that everyone on the board understands it's the director that reports to you and nobody else. Other staff report to the director, assistant director, whoever the case may be. So I don't want to put, a successful board is one in which every board member contributes. That can't always happen, I get that. But as a board president, I will say that I try, one of the things I really try to do is give everybody the opportunity to say something, because I believe everybody does have something to contribute. You've been elected in these positions. We all know with any committee, board, et cetera, some voices are louder or speak more often than others, that's fine, but everyone needs to feel like they have the opportunity. And I consider the best meetings we have in Aurora are the ones where I've heard from everyone. It's something that I try to do as a president. Onboarding plan for new trustees. If you don't, you should. There should be something. It doesn't need to be super intensive. But I know I've heard from a lot of trustees that just show up their first meeting, they give them the 80-page packet and say, good luck to you, and here's where we can't assume that new board members coming in know, again, what their role is, everything I've been talking about, and understanding the structure, organization of the library. So, and I think that the plan really can be a collaboration of the library director and other board members in kind of sharing in that onboarding process for your new trustees. You want to give them a good experience as they come in. Protect our freedom to read. This has been politicized. There's obviously a lot media coverage. All I would say to this is, when I was looking at your values, one of the values of the Lisle Public Library District is to have a collection that is representative of your diverse community and that you have something for everyone. And that's really what a public library is about. So to me, when I say protect our freedom to read, that is what I'm talking about. It's one of really the best organizations and reflections of a democracy. Trust your library director. I trust, and sometimes I think boards feel like if they're trusting their director, they're just letting them do what they want. They don't have any oversight. They're not mutually exclusive, trust and accountability. But just as it is with any staff, there has to be a level of trust there. Again, we're volunteers. We made the decision to put someone into that position of director. We have to trust them to do the job while at the same time holding them accountable, asking questions. And both of those things can coexist and really have to. I've already mentioned collective authority, board succession planning. When I say don't leave it to chance, it's just the idea that as you are thinking about vacancies, if you know somebody's rolling off the board, who in your community might be a great trustee that is going to act in the best interest of the board and be on the board for the right reasons. Often when we leave it to chance, we do get people that want to run for the board and are here for the right reasons. But I think to be proactive in our thinking, and as you are in your community, you know people who might be a prospective board member down the road. That's certainly a part that staff can play as well. Now, when I was doing this list, I stopped at 9 because I think traffic started to move. So then I asked the audience what they would add as their 10th. So I will, as I wrap up here, is there one thing you don't see on this or something I didn't talk about today that you would add as a top 10 list that you think board members should understand? I do have a 10th if you don't come up with anything based on what that group said to me. But before I put it up, I want to see if anybody has. They don't put me on the spot. 3. Okay. What they said was read your packet. Again, seems like a small thing, but as one who had Rails, and I know staff, not only director, but department heads, a lot of work goes into those packets every month. And I know for me as a board member, I feel guilty if I just show up at the board meeting without having reviewed it. I know we can't all devote hours to it, but read your packet. That was something that a lot of tables at that dinner had to say. So, okay. Again, thank you for your attention and for being trustees at this wonderful library. I will, gone about 25 minutes, but if there are any questions or comments, I would be happy to take them.
Any questions for Joe?
No, no direct question, but was very informative. Appreciate the top 10. Let Stephen, your last one.
Yes. Yeah, it's there are days where when I open that board packet for the first time and I see we just had our audit, so that's like 60 pages in itself, and it's a lot. But again, it's when we talk about trustee role, we talk about oversight. I mean, that document, all those numbers, that's part of what our role is that oversight. I do have some just stuff that they're not exactly gifts, but some information, we'll call it, that I'll leave with you, should it be helpful.
And turn off the thing.
Turn off the thing.
The thing.
Projector.
One of the
Look at that.
one of the flyers in here is for something called, you can just distribute however you like, but there is a trustee training portal that's been developed. It's called LLD. It was Illinois Heartland Library System, which is kind of our sister system downstate, got a grant to put together. It's an online training for library trustees in Illinois. So any trustee, it's online, it's free, you can access it whenever you want. So there's a flyer in there. And then I just included some handouts from United for Libraries, should it be helpful at any point. So again, thank you for the invitation to speak to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for calling.
thank you so much.
So much for your time.
Thank you,
All
Joe.
right.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Love to stay and listen to your policy, but I have discussion
You're a busy
with
guy.
my son at basketball practice.
Yeah.
So, have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
You ready to move on? Item 7A1 is unfinished business, capital improvement project, monthly project status update. Mark.
Well, he's still warming up, but. And we're getting close to probably not having to have this on the agenda too much longer.
You're down to 2 pages there.
Yeah, 2 pages, and if you're starting to notice too, the committed to date and the expenditures to date is getting awfully close. What's going on right now, the biggest issue that we're trying to get closed out is the drywall fissures and the soffit in the main entry. So Camosi came out within a day of being told that of the issue. I looked at it, I know they looked at it, they wanted some backup, and I'll call it backup, substantiation from the architects as to how and what the intention of the installation method was. Now, means and methods are the contractor's issue, it's not the designer's. But if there is any boilerplate information they get from the manufacturer, that's what we're trying to source out. I did get feedback from the architects actually earlier today. They've been out of office for about a week and a half, which is the fun part. But they did say that they've got that exact fixture installed at at least one other facility, and they don't have any issues there. It's been there longer. So we're going to take a look and see if we can get out there and see if there's what they did different there versus here. They've also reached out to the manufacturer to get any information back and forth.
Can you explain the situation a little bit more clearly?
Yeah.
What we're talking about in terms of crack.
So we've got the linear lights that go the north-south on the soffit, so this way from the entry. And you can see at the end of or around the perimeter of that light, it's like a flange basically that sits against the drywall, and then you mud and tape that flange into the drywall. It seems like the flange is lowering slightly from the drywall and it's creating a crack. You start to see a lot of drywall cracks from movement and things like that, but it's happened at almost all of your light fixtures that are there. So it's a little bit too consistent. The light should be moving with the drywall, the way it's mounted. So it's kind of odd to see it kind of dropping. And it's a hairline, but still it's a crack. We want to get that addressed. So Camosi, I don't think has got any issue. They've already reached out to the electrician and their drywaller. They've suggested meeting on site. I think we just want to have something in hand from the architects before we drag them both out here and try to get it just done with at that point in time. So no one's walking away from it. They're trying to address it. I wasn't here when Pat was here. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but that was the gist of it when what I heard.
No, that covers it pretty comprehensively.
Okay. So that's going on right now. The other small things that haven't been built out yet, I did notice when I was here, you've got a different cover now on that, which is great. I know that from when I talked to S Construction, they were, hopefully a week or a couple weeks at most away from getting the, I'll call it the board, but the paneling on the bottom of this room. That's good news. So we've got final landscaping. The landscaper today confirmed that he's coming in April to put in the final landscaping. So we actually won't need to go with a different vendor for landscaping. The original one under Camosi will get that accomplished in a month. That's really it for us. I know the exterior sign had some peeling and things like that. That was already addressed and taken care of. So that's good news.
We didn't know it was.
You didn't know that. He didn't tell me. He just sent me actually a picture yesterday night. He sent me a picture and the invoice for it.
Good observation, Marjorie.
Yes.
Yes.
So I didn't know you guys knew. I assume we called and checked in. I guess it's an exterior sign, so this went and fixed it. But yeah. It's funny actually. I'll call him on that one. But we're getting pretty close. I think my next step is assuming that the drywall gets taken care of, assuming that the landscaping gets taken care of. By the next board meeting, I'll come in with kind of the anticipated cost update. Won't be the 7.7 number. That'll be what we anticipate will be the final number for you guys. And that should be near closeout at that point in time, which I don't see anything on the horizon that's really going to be impacting in any significant manner, the 108,000 and change that's still left. If anything, that might go up actually, because I've got a couple of contingencies in there, not much, but a few pennies that might go a little bit.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, last thing too, actually, I will be scheduling, Tim would come for a walk. We will be scheduling I'll call it a 1-year walk. So you have a 1-year warranty with Camosi that ends in April. I can't remember the exact date, but we typically like having a walk just to kind of make sure everything's okay. There isn't anything sticking out to you guys, and honestly gives the contractors a little bit of a time to check in with you, make sure everything's okay first. So Tim did offer today when I talked to him that he'd come out, and we'll do that sometime between now and the next board meeting too.
Great.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Agenda item number 8 is committee reports. 8A, finance, any report?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. 8B, personnel and policy.
We met last week, right? Wasn't it last week? Just last week. We met last week. You hopefully noticed on the agenda that we have a bunch of policies that we're putting forth this evening. So hopefully that'll be it was a quick meeting. We got through it very quickly. So hopefully that portion of our meeting tonight will also be quick. So we'll get through that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and the new trustees, you don't know this, but veteran trustees know that it was kind of timely. Joe mentioned the director's evaluation, and that's something that we need to talk about. In the last couple of years, the Personnel and Policy Committee is the committee who drafted the evaluation process and form that we use. And so we used it for the first time last year. It was we're just trying it, seeing how it goes. But in that process, every trustee actually was given the same document, able to rate the director in different categories. And then it all got submitted back to, I don't know if it came to staff or it ended up coming to me. And then I, as the chair of the Personnel and Policy Committee, and then I went through them and I kind of organized it all together and said, okay, this was the rating. And then what we did was we had a executive session where we discussed only the director's evaluation, but we talked about it and we discussed what things that we had thought or why we had rated in this way, a certain way, and we could adjust if we wanted to or whatever. And then in that meeting, we then all of that, and then we set the salary for the director for the next year. So, which is something that we'll be doing. We have to do before the fiscal year. All of that to say that in the coming weeks, you will be getting a digital copy of the form that we used last year, and then we'll give you some parameters about when we would like it to be completed by, so that we can have it to tabulate all the information before we have that meeting with the director in closed session about her evaluation. Did I say everything I was supposed to say, Marjorie?
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
I hate to, well, I don't. Will we provide an opportunity for, now we don't want to reinvent the wheel,
Mm-hmm.
but the new trustees' suggestions as to what may be lacking or what you might like to see.
So so this is just me, and feel free to say what you want to say as new trustees. I feel like coming in, so this was the situation that we inherited when we came in. There was nothing. And so it was just kind of like the director just wrote down and like goals for herself and then summarized what she had done, because that's what previous directors had said, or previous board presidents had said to do, and that's just what it was. And we came in and we were like, we need something. This is not enough. We need something. We need to be able to give her feedback from us. We talked about director like self goals and then board directed goals and all this stuff. And so these are things that we did before you were onboarded. So where I'm coming from, and feel free to say how you feel, but I feel like for this time we should kind of stick with what we did last year. And then you can see kind of how that goes and then tweak it in the future, or if there's things that you see. I don't want you to feel like you can't share what you are thinking now as you're looking at it once you get it. But I would like to kind of have a conversation, and I don't know if that's something we could do in open session or in closed session about that. Not directed just at the director, like not evaluating her,
But the process.
but the process and the document. So I feel like the document we can talk about in open session. It's just if it's directly related to the director's performance, we have to do that in closed session.
Right.
So maybe as I'm talking through this, maybe then at the April meeting, we can just kind of have it as an agenda item.
Sure.
And everyone will have already had a copy of it to see it, and then we can talk about it in open session then.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Does that sound like a good way? As I just
Mhm.
really,
Yeah.
I just talked through my whole little idea there. Did not come in with that idea, but that just came out.
The only thing I would maybe add for future consideration, because this is not going to happen this year, but in the future, because of the way the evaluation timing falls with the onboarding, you mentioned self-directed and board-directed goals. It might be helpful to include that as part of the onboarding process so that
you're aware.
Correct, because it just dawned on me, I'm not even aware what those are, and I'm sure I could go look for them, but I also didn't even think of it until we started talking about evaluation.
Right,
So
right. And that
it's
is,
been 10 months.
yeah, absolutely. That is something that
Yeah.
we definitely should put on there and whoever, when there's a new board being seated next May,
Right.
who knows who's going to be the ones that are
Right.
responsible for that. So
So I'm fine with that approach, but I
Okay.
think that
yeah,
Could be
that's
amended for
great
an
that we
onboarding
add that
activity.
into the onboarding and something that the new board next May, then
Mhm.
that's something that they address.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay, so did anyone else have any questions for me about that? Because I was kind of all over the place, sorry. Okay, so we'll see our policies later. That's it, that's all I got.
That's all you got.
That's all I got.
I know Karen's not here. Do we have anything for physical plant?
Yeah, there will be a meeting on April 1st at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Yeah. Agenda item 9, staff reports, 9A, director's report.
Okay.
Please.
So in my report, I mentioned that staff are very busy pulling together estimates for the fiscal year 24-25 budget year. And this process involves compiling draft requests from all the departments, We always look at the previous fiscal year just to gauge upcoming expenditures. We're going to be looking at incorporating any upcoming projects, and then of course the inevitable inflationary increases. And we're, depending on what we're talking about, it could be anywhere from like 5% to 10%. And we think even health insurance, we might go up about 10%, but you will see that very soon. We will also have estimated revenues in that draft report, and that includes property taxes, the interest we earn on our funds across the board, and then any gifts and or grants that we receive or hope to receive. And then the working budget document will also include any potential capital projects, and we've been preliminarily discussing the vacant lots. But if we plan to do anything in this next fiscal year, 24-25, if we have to hire like an engineer or a project manager like CCS or something like that, we would want to include some of those expenses in the budget. We may not expend funds in that manner, we don't know, but budgeting for it, so we know is good to do. And then I mentioned the physical plant committee meeting on April 1st because that's where we'll be discussing the vacant lots on April 1st. And then as of April 17th, the next regular board meeting, you will see a first draft of the budget. So hopefully some good information will come out of physical plant, and then we will have that information in the draft budget. And all you need to do as a board is make sure we pass the draft budget before July 1st. So we can either pass it in May or we can pass it in June. And then moving on to policy mentions, we have a list here. Most of them refer to court orders and the protection of library records. So what we've done is clarified and consolidated 4 policies so that staff have a clear understanding of directives and obligations. And then obviously, as Joe mentioned too, just updating our policies on the regular really helps staff have something behind them when they're dealing with matters such as these. And then my report concludes with a review of current statistics. So since we're almost at the 1-year mark of opening the library back up to the public, I just wanted to highlight some really great numbers here. So in general, our stats across the board have had significant year-to-date increases. We've had them in circulation, program attendance, and facility use. There's also, as you know, in the packet, I just say this for the public, there's a more comprehensive document that shows all our statistics. But just for an example, our print materials, our digital materials, and our non-print materials all see an increase of 28% in total. Our public computer use has increased by 27%. Our database use has increased by 83%. Wi-Fi use has increased by 260%, obviously because we are open to the public again. And the public scanner use has increased 66%. The total number of registered card holders has increased by 11%, and that's even after, I think, 2 years now or a year, we have allowed families just to have one card for their family. So that's a nice increase. We don't have a full year of pickup window statistics yet, but as of today, we have over 202 patrons using it. I'm not sure if they're unique, but we've had over 611 items go through the pickup window.
That's awesome.
Over the last year, yeah. And then the total number of library programs has increased by 6% since last year, and the total number of patrons served by programming has increased by 34%. Our volunteer hours are booming. We have like an increase of 1,250%, but that's mostly because we have a dedicated teen space now, and that's where our tab group, Teen Advisory Board meets, and they do all of their volunteer activities out of that room and help with the library. Our notary service, which is Jackie, has increased by 82%. And I don't know if that's because it's an election year or not, but she does a lot of good notary work here. And since last year, patrons actually entering the building and using the building has increased by 63%. Most of our library social media sites show increases, but our eBlast engagement has increased significantly by 372%. We've targeted certain demographics like kids, teens, and adults, and that seems to have helped. Our app has also seen an increase in downloads by 63%, and the use has increased by 92%. So all these are really great numbers, and I think it's a testament to the renovation because I think it's really met the needs of the people who use the library, and they're using the library in a number of ways, and I think these numbers also reflect that. So I think we're doing a good job in terms of what we did with the renovation. So all good stuff. And then just lastly, in keeping with the great statistics theme, 2 Saturdays ago, we hosted the Kilgovin Brothers playing traditional Irish music in this very room. We had 60 people in the room attending. And we are planning to do more of like the cultural musical programs, because
Great.
the Friends of the Library used to do weekend programming that were music generally, and they were well attended. It's not happening anymore, so we're kind of taking the baton there, and we're planning on doing more of those kind of musical programs here. And then secondly, and still on the Irish fun kind of theme, we also hosted a very special leprechaun hunt pajama story time in this room and in the library, and we had over 70 participants, kids plus caretakers in the building. So these have been also very popular. They're like early evening programs for families, and we're planning on doing more of those in the future too.
Great.
But yeah, it's good. And that's my report.
Everybody's Irish, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tatiana.
You're welcome.
I have 2 questions and a
Sure.
comment. What were the forecasted percentage increases in all of these areas, or just circulation, program attendance, and facility use based on the renovation?
I don't think we guessed at how much more use. I think before we went through the renovation, I mean, we had seen statistics from the
Okay.
libraries, like once you renovate, you're gonna see such a influx of, but
Okay.
I can look into what like other libraries of our size have and what they've seen, but they've all seen increases in
Right.
use with updates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is year over year, and we know that there were some challenges in the past. How do the numbers, the percentage increases, compare to the previous highest numbers, if you have that?
I would have to go back
Okay.
because during COVID too,
Right,
we
right.
had so
It was
so
COVID
many-
renovation.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm trying to determine, is the year over year really an accurate barometer of our highest ever figures, and are we truly seeing these increases? And some of them I'm sure we are, and the reason I'm asking this is, does it change anything we need to do for the near future in relation to funding for programs or for circulation or facility usage, or this teen space, 1,200% increase in volunteer hours? Is that, do we need to look at any of these numbers in more depth to make sure that we are prepared to handle that from a staffing, programming, whatever it may be, perspective, materials, I don't know.
So what I was planning to do, this was just kind of a taste of where the numbers are now, because
Right.
I've been seeing, even last month, the numbers were good, you know,
Right.
year to date. So once we round the year, I was and per your suggestion, is kind of to look over I would say maybe a 5-year span.
Right,
And COVID years are gonna be a little weird.
right.
And then probably the first year out of renovations will be a little weird, but I think 5 years would be a good kind of gauge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the comment is, I'm pleased that the social media platforms are showing those significant increases. I know that we're trying, and that engagement is somewhat difficult, but I'm really, really happy to see the engagement is increased, because I still, in talking to my peer group that are not, they're very involved, but they're not super attuned to this, there's still some things that they don't realize are happening here. So there are, even in Lisle, certain percentages of people who are not aware of all that we have to offer. So that engagement number is really comforting, in that we are reaching populations that we not before. And that's going to be the main way to engage with those groups, is virtually. So I'm really pleased about that.
Yeah, I was happy that the e-blasts are actually not just people who open them, but who actually click on
Right.
something in the
Yes, yes, and that will continue
And
to
whoever
compound.
is working on social media is doing a pretty good job of it, because I watched a Conservation Foundation presentation that they did here on like landscaping for your backyard and stuff, and then realized that it was a program from last year that they had reposted as like, oh, it's spring, you might be interested in this. So I like that they're
recycling.
it.
Yes.
It's great.
Topical and pertinent. All right.
Before
Thank
you
you.
move on, it just got me thinking, how's the new website going?
It's going well. We're looking possibly launching next week. We have to do it before the end of the, well, we have to launch the new calendar before the end of the month because that particular vendor is sunsetting its service.
Okay.
But we're looking at possibly launching next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else? Bill?
All right, so Mark mentioned that we did a walk around and noted a few issues that we're working with SNH and Camosi on to address. So I'll hopefully have more at our next meeting. Lyra coordinated an appraisal of each of its member buildings. So they sent out an appraiser in February to assess the building. We've not heard back from them yet, but it was covered as part of the pool, so it was at no cost to us. S Construction came out to repair a few drywall cracks and to also finish the drop-down projector, which looks fantastic.
It
So they did a
does,
really good job
yeah,
on that.
it really does.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
great
an eyesore
job.
anymore.
They did a really good job on that, and then we're just waiting for the cladding on the perimeter of the meeting rooms to be delivered. At this point, it's probably 2 weeks out is what they're estimating. And then once they get it, I can schedule them. It'll be about 2 days worth of work for them to come in and get that done. We had All American Sign Company came out. They're the ones who have been helping us with signage throughout the building over the last 6-7 months. We're going to see what we can do about placing some signage on the big picture window at the south entrance. We've had a few patrons,
Oh,
Rare
right into the
occurrences.
glass.
yes.
Or I think it's the entrance.
think it's the entrance and try to go through and like be
Because
confused.
it's the offset one, because if you go in here and then come over here,
Yeah.
this one?
It's
Yes, it's the south entrance. So
Yeah,
it's,
so it's over.
like
and
catch
then you
themselves
come
and
in.
then be
Yeah.
confused. But so we're working to figure out a solution for that. Sendra
Is that
came.
where the
The planter is upstairs.
upstairs? But is that where the Warhol pictures were
Mhm.
before?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Exactly where. Sendra came out and we needed some maintenance done on our humidifiers in the west boiler room. So they actually completed that work on Monday. So that is all wrapped up. And then Anderson came out. If you all remember, we had issues with the south parking lot lights a few months ago. Anderson is our pest control company, and we figured out an answer to keep that from happening again. So next time they come out for their monthly maintenance, they're going to address the light poles in the south parking lot.
Great. Any questions for Luke? Thank you. All right. Moving on, item number 10, new business.
All right, here we go. You ready? I move to approve revisions to policy 650, use of meeting and study room.
I second.
Discussion?
Okay,
Do you want me to?
yes, I would love you to.
Okay. Okay, so this one is pretty simple. I know you've got the draft and the clean copy in the packet, but basically we struck one sentence where it states the outside group meetings will be featured on the online calendar. That is it.
I scrolled right past it the first time, and then I'm like,
What's
wait a second,
What,
it
didn't we
changed. I had to
just do
scroll
this
all the way back
policy?
up to the top and see one strike through. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, that's easy.
That is it.
Okay, perfect. That's a good one.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Ellen Lee Twister,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Vanessa Berry,
Aye.
Debbie Bryan,
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, I move to approve revisions to policy 315, loan period.
I'll second.
Director Weinstein.
Okay. So basically we added 5 items that weren't on the list before. We separated youth kits and puzzles that were on the same line. So there's on separate lines because we placed a 2-item limit on the kits. And then we footnoted 3 items just to make it a cleaner
Okay.
table. And so there's no more asterisk, there's just footnotes.
And the reciprocal eligible was added.
Oh, right,
That's a
the
new
I
thing.
keep forgetting that column, yes. So the reciprocal eligibility column is mostly for staff because we refer to this chart on the regular when a patron comes up and says, hey, can I check this out? And then we can say yes or no if they're reciprocal or.
Got
it.
Thank you.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Emily Twister,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Vanessa Berry,
Aye.
Debbie Bryan,
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay.
365.
I move to approve policy 365, confidentiality of library records and associated forms.
I'll second.
So the first thing to mention here is that this policy is duplicated. So policy 910 is its twin, and we know, well, we don't have to have two policies. I'm not really sure why there were two policies, but it is so. Second, policies 375 and 380 are very much related to 365. They're all associated with protecting the library records and describing the procedures for either a search warrant or emergency requests by law enforcement. So for the staff, having 3 and 4 policies that refer to the same or related information was always confusing for staff. So I did a little research. Most libraries have one policy that covers everything within 365 that addresses the subject matter. So after looking at other libraries and drafting a one policy, I sent the policy to our attorney because it involves law enforcement and laws. And he then sent me his suggestions, and so what you see before you is the draft that includes all of his suggestions. So basically, the draft contains a clearer introduction. We continue to reference the full statute as we did previously. Section B goes over the procedures, and then just the forms follow. If there's any questions about the information in it, I'm happy to answer them, but this is basically attorney approved. We just need the board to feel like it covers everything.
Marjorie Bertelli.
Aye.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, and so then with that, now we have these ones. I move to revoke policy 910, confidentiality of library records.
I'll second.
Marjorie Bertelli.
Aye.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, next. I move to revoke policy 375, search warrant policy.
I second.
Marjorie Bertelli.
Aye.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, and then the last one to revoke. I move to revoke policy 380, request by a sworn law enforcement officer.
I'll second.
Marjorie Bertelli.
Aye.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, and then the fun one. I move to approve revisions to policy 370, Freedom of Information Act.
I will second.
Roll call. Oh,
No, this one we have to discuss.
I'm sorry.
We have to discuss this one.
Oh, we do. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so this policy hasn't been revised since 2008, so there were some incorrect information in this current policy, and there were some unnecessary explanations within. So what I did was organize it into two main sections and include an overview. So section A is the overview, and section B outlines the procedures. B1 lets the public know that we require FOIA requests to be on paper. Didn't say that before, but we do and always have. B2 provides addresses for submission. I think the previous one only included the library's physical address, but we allow submissions via email. And then numbers 3 through 7 clarify the rest of the procedures, and number 8 lets the public know who the FOIA officers are. So just a clearer policy.
Any questions?
Who were and this is not really relevant, but I'm curious, who were the FOIA officers previously? Were they not identified? Because I see that's added.
Yeah, it never identified who the FOIA officers were.
Okay, got it.
It's generally the library director, but it just never
Okay,
didn't indicate it.
got it. Thank you.
Roll call.
Marjorie Bertelli.
Aye.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yay, thanks.
Great work, you guys.
Item 11, opportunity for trustee comments. We'll start with trustee Martin.
Ooh.
She's going out of order.
Well, I feel like you picked me because you knew I had something on my mind. I wanted to check, Director, have we previously, in reference to the public comment earlier, discussed electric vehicle charging stations? Or we have talked about that? No?
Previous to you being on the board.
Okay, then I may be misconstruing, and this is just me asking the question if anybody's aware of it. As part of the village's development, aren't they also evaluating some EV charging stations in downtown?
They got
Yes.
a grant for theirs downtown.
Which was
I'm not sure did they receive it?
I don't know that answer, but my question was, is there the opportunity for pursuing a grant for something along the lines of EV charging or defraying the cost of that? Because I would be interested in that. And the second question is that something that is too soon to add as an agenda item for that physical plant meeting, or could we potentially bring it up as an agenda item to at least talk about discovery topics for that?
I will share that with the chair, and then
Okay.
she will work with me on the agenda.
Perfect.
I don't imagine she would be opposed, but
Okay.
I can't speak for her.
No, that's
Just
Yeah.
because this board has discussed it, and if my memory serves, we discussed it prior to the renovation or during the renovation, and the village board of trustees was talking about grant opportunities, and the board permitted me to send an email to the village board, kind of championing the effort, but also putting our hat in the ring if they were to consolidate going out for grants for
Right.
these type of things. And it just really didn't go anywhere. And I'm not sure why, I don't think anyone responded to the email, or maybe we just got a thank you. And I'm not sure they were at the point where they were reaching out to fulfill the grant in any way. And I'm not sure they received it yet either, but I know there's ongoing grants for that type of
Yeah,
thing.
it might be worth it to look into Rewiring America, because they have like an insanely extensive website on like how to rewire your home, but they also have a whole section for like governments and nonprofits and that kind of thing.
And I would also ask if we've not evaluated the installed power, and this might be a question for the assistant director, to know if we even have capacity for it, because that's a significant limiting factor as well. So more of just understanding the feasibility. So that was really just feasibility and previous activities that have been done around electric vehicle charging. And then the second thing, just again, reiterating the fantastic growth numbers and wanting to understand as we approach the budget cycle what, if anything, we should be looking to for even not just expansion, but possibilities for additional programming and services based upon the fact that we have such great engagement on any number of other things that we didn't previously have before. So, thank you.
Liz, trustee Sullivan.
Wherever she's gonna look.
I know, she's got these eyes that you don't know where they're gonna look. I was just speaking with the director before the meeting. It struck me the seriousness of the search warrant policy when I was reading it. And the seriousness of what the staff may encounter by having a police officer come in the building and, I know our folks don't take this stuff lightly, but I just was, I'm glad we're consolidating policies. First of all, that's a lot of work on your team and on your staff. But boy, oh boy, that really struck me as serious. So that was my only comment.
Thank you. Trustee Bryant?
Again, great job on these policies. I mean, it made it so clear and so well done. So thank you very much for taking the time with those and really making it easier for everyone, because if we do have a situation, we don't want to have to be digging through and then going, oh my gosh. So it's really important to keep up with this. So thank you for keeping us on our toes with that. And I just wanted to say that I love that you're bringing back the music programs, speaking for my senior friends. I know they really miss that and they're going elsewhere to get it now. So we want to bring them back or, kind of enhance, coming here. And I know a lot of them came to the Irish music because they had told me about it. So yeah, that they were going. And I love that you're offering more evening programs for families too, because that's a wonderful thing, because there's so many more that are, not able to come during the day. So great work as always.
Trustee Barry.
I just had one comment. I had a friend in the community who used to go hang out at Barnes and Nobles in Naperville all the time. And now that that's closed, she's like, I don't know where to go. Go to the library. She's like, oh yeah. So I feel like we might be getting more of that. Like they were talking about third spaces. Knowing like
Our Wi-Fi numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
it's like a
Gosh,
place
yeah.
to be,
Yes.
It's great.
Thank you. Vice President Swister.
So I wrote this note during Joe's presentation. I put strategic plan. It was 2017 through 2022. So what now? Because we're in 2024. So that kind of popped into my head that our strategic plan is expired. And so what now? So I just was kind of bringing it back up into our minds that we need to be starting to work on another strategic plan, right? So again, he brought it up and then I was like, oh my gosh. So like, it's
How
in
does
my
the
head.
strategic plan happen? Is that like a committee or?
It's a committee of the whole generally, but it's really up to you to decide how you want to handle it. And this is not revealing anything unusual, but in my evaluation last year, I proposed that we handle it ourselves because a lot of organizations hire a consultant to go through a strategic plan. We did that many years ago, over 10 years ago. And we learned from it. I mean, I was here, it's not that hard to do on our own. We don't need to spend $50,000 on it. And we can move forward. Though our strategic plan has quote unquote expired, we still uphold what is in that strategic plan. So it's not like
It's gone and
not
there's
doing
nothing.
anything
Yeah.
for us. We still follow the plan. We do need to update it, and I actually reviewed it prior to making this packet because thinking ahead to next month, like maybe we have, I'll have to talk to President Bartelli about this, but maybe we have like a preliminary meeting on the procedures and how we go about it. But in general, it's a committee of the whole that discuss objectives for the future. And in reviewing the strategic plan that we have now, I mean, it's pretty good. The stuff we have in there are really nice objectives. Now, a lot of it involved like renovation type stuff, but it doesn't mean we can't develop other things within the library, like under the facility umbrella. I mean, we're talking about the vacant land. We're talking about, what Josh mentioned about, what can we do to improve what we do in this facility and things like that. So,
And I feel like, that we made a successful strategic plan last time, so it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. Like I feel like it's a good starting point,
Right.
to reference and say, okay, just because of all the time we spent on it before, I feel like it would not be so challenging, like starting from from scratch again.
right,
So,
and we can do things like, we can put out a survey to the public to gain, if we wanna have focus groups, we can do that. If we wanna just have an open house where we invite the public to provide input, we can do that too. So there's a lot of options.
that's it. Thank you.
I was also going to bring up the strategic plan. And thank you for arranging the training tonight.
Mhm.
It was nice
Absolutely.
refresher.
Very good.
I hope you-
Very
Oh, very
That's my
nice.
favorite
Very nice.
charge.
Thanks for your charge.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, last item on the agenda.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And 8:24 PM.